Welcome back to our channel. Most people overlook these dimes. Big mistake. It's sold for more than a car. Check your pockets and subscribe. In 1996, the United States Mint was marking the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime, a design first introduced in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. That year held special significance in numismatic circles. Not only was the dime's half-century legacy being commemorated, but the mint made a subtle yet deliberate change. For the first time, W. Mint mark was added to a Roosevelt dime, struck at the West Point Mint, and included only in the uncirculated mint sets. It was a quiet celebration, one that collectors took note of, though the general public hardly noticed. Billions of dimes continued to be struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints as usual, entering everyday circulation like clockwork. It all seemed routine. Until it wasn't. Somewhere amid the massive production numbers of 1996, an anomaly occurred, one that wasn't part of the mint's commemoration plan. It didn't draw attention immediately. It didn't announce itself with bold colors or striking features. It slipped through, silent and nearly invisible, until years later when someone finally noticed what should have been there but wasn't. A coin dealer in Minnesota was sorting through a batch of 1996 dimes that had come in from a local estate sale. Most were well worn, the kind that had seen decades of vending machines and gas station counters. But one stood out. It looked untouched, sharp in detail, still gleaming with its original luster. The dealer pulled it closer, checking it under a loupe, just to verify its condition. That's when he noticed the oddity. There was no mint mark. He knew the implications immediately. In 1996, Philadelphia struck coins bore no mint mark, but only in prior decades. After 1980, even coins from Philadelphia were marked with a P. By that standard, every dime from 1996 should have carried either a P, D, or the limited edition W. But this one had none. It was a ghost, an unmarked outlier among billions that he checked again and again. No mark. No sign of tampering. The coin wasn't worn down. The rim was clean. The fields were free of damage. It didn't look like a circulation error. It looked like something that had escaped detection from the very beginning. He reached out to a numismatist friend who specialized in modern era coins. The friend advised immediate authentication. When the coin was submitted for certification, the findings were as unexpected as they were fascinating. The grading service confirmed it as an original 1996 Roosevelt dime, struck from a die that had never received its mint mark. The omission was not the result of wear or post-mint damage, it was an authentic mint error. It had been struck, released, and circulated without anyone at the mint noticing that a dime from the late 20th century was missing a defining feature. The discovery was both thrilling and disorienting. Errors like these had happened before, most famously in 1982 and 1983, but they were always closely tied to chaotic production runs, transitional periods, or poorly maintained dies. But 1996 had no such complications. It was a year of celebration and stability at the mint. The release of the West Point dime had drawn collector attention. But somewhere in the sea of precision, a regular working die, one meant to mark coins for Philadelphia, was left blank. For years, the coin world debated how it could have happened. Some suggested overpolishing of the die removed the mint mark before use. Others believed a test die, never intended for production, was mistakenly used in a limited run. But the mint offered no official explanation. Their silence only deepened the mystery. No public records existed indicating such an error occurred. And yet, the coin existed, tangible proof of imperfection in a system designed to avoid it. Collectors began poring over their 1996 dimes. Few found anything unusual. The error was extraordinarily rare. Only a handful of verified no-mint mark 1996 dimes have ever been documented, making them one of the rarest anomalies of the modern Roosevelt series. Each time a new one surfaced, it was met with intense scrutiny, and each time, if verified, it only reinforced the extraordinary rarity of the find. A retired veteran named Harvey in Tennessee discovered one of these dimes buried at the bottom of an old cigar box he'd used to store pocket change over the years. It was only when his grandson began sorting coins for a school project that the missing mint mark caught their attention. Harvey, skeptical at first, sent it off to be graded, and it came back authenticated. What had sat unnoticed for over 2 decades turned out to be worth far more than anything else in the box. As these few coins surfaced and gained recognition, their value started to rise dramatically. Initially, private collectors were hesitant. Modern coins weren't always treated with the same reverence as older rarities. But the tide began to shift. The combination of historical timing, the dime's celebratory context, and the incredible scarcity pushed interest higher. A verified example sold quietly in 2015 for just over $28,000. But by 2018, another reached $54,000 at a public auction. By 2021, word of the coin had spread beyond just hardcore collectors. General investors, intrigued by the coin's anomaly and market performance, entered the fray. A certified specimen, in pristine condition, was purchased by a private collector for $93,000. Then came the twist. In late 2022, a coin surfaced in Colorado that bore all the traits of the 1996 no mint mark error, but it also showed evidence of a die crack extending from Roosevelt's jawline down to the rim. This was unprecedented. Prior known examples had been clean, nearly flawless in strike. But this one, while still missing the mint mark, had a deep, clearly visible die flaw. It was examined and verified as a genuine error with an additional defect, likely the result of the same rogue die's continued use before it was finally decommissioned. This sparked new interest. If one flawed die had struck more than a few coins, could others with different anomalies exist? Were there more than just a small handful out there, waiting in old piggy banks, forgotten rolls, or unsearched proof sets? The theories grew bolder. Some collectors speculated that the West Point mint mark celebration distracted mint officials, allowing a rare mistake to slip through in Philadelphia. Others believed the error might be linked to an overlooked training period or die preparation mishap during shift changes. The mint maintained its silence, and the questions continued to mount. Collectors now view the 1996 no mint mark Roosevelt dime as one of the most compelling error coins of the modern era. Its value is no longer speculative. It's real, documented, and growing. With only a few verified examples known and even fewer in mint state condition, this dime has achieved a level of status few modern coins enjoy. Today, depending on condition, luster, and verification, the value of a 1996 Roosevelt dime missing its mint mark ranges between $40,000 and $110,000. A small, silver-toned piece of American currency, often passed over without a second glance, now stands as a symbol of how even the most precise systems can produce a whisper of chaos. A whisper that, when discovered, can echo across generations. In 2004, the United States Mint continued its unwavering production of coins used by millions of Americans every day. The Roosevelt dime, a coin in circulation for nearly 6 decades, remained largely unchanged. Bearing the image of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on its obverse and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, it was a familiar sight. It quietly moved through wallets, vending machines, parking meters, and grocery stores, always reliable, rarely noticed. That year, dimes were minted in massive quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The process was efficient, precise, and largely uneventful. But within that tide of metallic sameness, something happened. A mistake. A small one. One barely detectable. And yet it would later change the fate of a few ordinary coins forever. The discovery wasn't immediate. It began as most great numismatic stories do, quietly. A retired schoolteacher in Ohio was sorting through a shoebox of change. He had always had a casual interest in coins, nothing serious, just an occasional glance for wheat pennies or silver edges. But something about one 2004 dime pulled at his curiosity. The coin shimmered oddly under the light. The devices seemed sharper, the fields more reflective, and the strike, different. It didn't match the rest. He took out his magnifying glass and examined the small coin more carefully. The Roosevelt portrait was deeper, the rim more squared. But when he looked at the space to the right of Roosevelt's neck, he blinked. There was no mint mark. He knew what that meant. Since 1980, all Philadelphia minted dimes had carried a P, and Denver dimes bore a D. If there was no mark, something was wrong, or very, very rare. Unsure of what he had, he took the coin to a local shop. The dealer, an older man who'd been in the business for decades, leaned in and inspected it. He reached for his loupe and didn't speak for nearly a minute. Then, carefully, he placed the dime into a soft velvet tray, separate from the others. He said only 3 words, "This isn't normal." The coin was sent to a grading service. Weeks passed. When it came back, the label was clear: 2004 Roosevelt dime, no mint mark, proof strike. The implications of that designation couldn't be overstated. Proof coins in 2004 were struck at the San Francisco Mint and always bore an S mint mark. They were never released into general circulation. They were struck with high-pressure dies, polished to perfection, and sealed in collector sets. But this coin had no S. No P. No D. It was a phantom. A San Francisco proof with no mint mark. Word began to spread. The coin community, tight-knit and meticulous, buzzed with speculation. How could a proof coin from 2004 leave the mint without a mint mark? Proof coins were handled with care, inspected at multiple stages, and carefully packaged for collectors. The error didn't seem possible. And yet, here it was. A few months later, another surfaced. This time from a retired military man in California who had broken apart a 2004 proof set he'd received as a gift. One by one, he examined each coin. The penny had its S. The nickel did too. So did the quarter. But the dime was missing it. It looked perfect otherwise: frosted devices, mirrored fields, no scratches or nicks. He sent it in. The result was identical. Another no mint mark 2004 proof dime. It became evident that this wasn't an isolated slip. It wasn't just a fluke in handling or a one-off accident. A small batch of proof dimes had been struck in San Francisco using dies that never bore a mint mark. Whether this was due to a production oversight, a die intended for training or testing that accidentally entered full production, or a mint employee's mistake, no one knew. The U.S. Mint never released an official explanation. Collectors began combing through their sealed 2004 proof sets. Some carefully opened them, hoping to spot a similar error. Few succeeded. The number of confirmed examples remained very low. And with each one discovered and verified, the rarity of the error solidified. What made this particular error so captivating wasn't just its scarcity, it was the context. It came at a time when minting standards had reached new levels of control. By 2004, modern coin production was highly regulated. The technology in place minimized human error, introduced electronic oversight, and prioritized consistency. Errors weren't supposed to happen, not like this. And certainly not with proof coins. As time passed, the market value of the no mint mark 2004 proof dime began to change. At first, sales occurred quietly, collector to collector, often between those who knew exactly what they were dealing with. The coin wasn't widely recognized outside the numismatic world, but within it, interest was growing. A certified example sold privately for over $26,000 in 2015. Another was quietly picked up in a multi-coin trade valued around $40,000. By 2018, the coin made its first appearance at a major auction house. The bidding started slow, but once the coin's background was explained, proof strike, missing mint mark, less than a dozen verified examples, the room changed. It sold for over $70,000, shocking even veteran collectors. The demand surged after that. The few owners who held one weren't in a rush to sell. They knew what they had. Something modern. Something rare. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. Then, in 2021, an unexpected detail emerged. A researcher compiling a study of mint die usage patterns found a notation in a mint production log that listed 2004 Roosevelt, die prep, no mark, internal only. The note was vague. It could have meant anything. But to some, it suggested that a die without a mint mark had been produced for internal test strikes or training purposes. Somehow, that die, or more than one, ended up on the production floor for actual proof coins. If true, it was a colossal procedural oversight. And that only made the coin more fascinating. Further speculation grew when an incomplete proof dime die was discovered in a private collection of mint memorabilia in Oregon. The die had no visible mint mark cavity. It had never been used for striking, but its existence lent weight to the theory that such dies had indeed been prepared. To this day, the exact number of 2004 no-mint mark proof dimes remains uncertain. But the number verified by top-tier grading services remains extremely limited. These coins continue to be the subject of speculation, research, and awe. They represent not just a rare physical mistake, but a reminder that even modern systems, optimized for perfection, can yield unpredictable results. As of now, depending on grade, eye appeal, and provenance, a 2004 Roosevelt dime struck as a proof without any mint mark commands between $33,000 and $98,000 on the collector's market. A 10-cent coin transformed by absence, by what it lacks, rather than what it bears, into one of the most talked about modern dime errors ever documented. In 2016, the Roosevelt dime quietly entered its 70th year of continuous circulation, its design still faithful to the original that first appeared in 1946. The coin's journey through 7 decades of American pockets was unbroken and largely undisturbed. That year, the United States Mint operated with predictable precision. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco each contributed to the national coin supply. Tens of millions of dimes flowed out of the presses, some destined for everyday commerce, others preserved in mint and proof sets for collectors. But among those millions, a few were unlike the rest. They were born not with fanfare, but with a flaw. And that flaw would eventually elevate an unnoticed coin to national intrigue. It wasn't until late 2019 that the first anomaly appeared. A young numismatist in Arizona, combing through pocket change collected during a cross-country trip, noticed a 2016 dime with an unusual texture. It didn't seem aged, yet the luster was inconsistent. He initially thought it was simply worn from use, but something about the depth of the strike on Roosevelt's profile felt wrong. He turned the coin under the light. No gouges. No scratches. Still sharp around the rim. But then he noticed something strange. The small space to the right of the neck, where the mint mark should be, was completely blank. He'd seen thousands of modern dimes. He knew all post-1980 Roosevelt dimes bore a mint mark. A Philadelphia P, a Denver D, or the S reserved for San Francisco proofs. This one had none. A blank space, free of tampering or erosion, stared back at him. He brought the dime to a coin show in Flagstaff, unsure of what to expect. A dealer with 30 years of experience studied it carefully. The coin was in high condition, minimal signs of circulation, a clean surface, and no post-mint damage. Most importantly, it had the reflective brilliance of a proof coin, with frosted devices and mirrored fields. But no mint mark. That made no sense. San Francisco struck all proof coins in 2016, and every one of them bore an S. No exceptions. Unless an error had occurred. A very rare one. The coin was submitted to a leading grading service. The verdict was clear and astonishing: 2016 Roosevelt dime, struck as a proof, with no mint mark. The error was authentic. There was no post-mint alteration. Somehow, a small batch of proof dimes had escaped the U.S. Mint in San Francisco without the one letter that identified their origin. The numismatic world took notice. This wasn't a misaligned die or a double strike. It was a mint mark omission in an era of digital checks, automated controls, and nearly flawless processes. In 2016, such an error wasn't just unusual, it was nearly unthinkable. Speculation surged. Some theorized that the mint mark hub used for a set of dies had worn down and wasn't re-engraved. Others guessed that a die intended for internal testing or staff training had accidentally made it into proof production. Still others floated a more intriguing idea: that a small handful of dies without mint marks had been created intentionally for study or design tests and were never meant to be used, yet somehow slipped into the striking process unnoticed. Despite the theories, no official word ever came from the mint. That silence, intentional or not, added to the intrigue. Soon, another coin surfaced. This time in Indiana, found by an elderly collector who had cracked open several sealed 2016 silver-proof sets to inspect them individually. His find matched the Arizona dime in nearly every way: no mint mark, proof strike, perfect mirrored surface. He submitted it, and again, it was verified. What began as a curiosity became a chase. Collectors began buying sealed proof sets, scanning online listings, and trading tips on coin forums. The few no-mint mark examples discovered were sent for grading immediately. Most came back as legitimate errors. But there were also fakes, ordinary 2016 proof dimes with mint marks removed through acid or abrasion, passed off as rare finds. Those, of course, never passed authentication, but the flood of imitations only proved how desirable the genuine ones had become. The value began modestly. One sold in early 2020 for just under $18,000. Another in slightly higher grade changed hands in 2021 for over $30,000. Then in 2022, a near-perfect specimen graded PR70 Deep Cameo, a nearly flawless coin, shattered expectations when it sold privately for $630,000. But the real shock came in 2023, when a collector in Maine found a variation that hadn't been seen before. It was another 2016 no-mint mark proof dime, but this one showed clear doubling on the word Liberty. A subtle, but defined doubling. Experts examined it. The doubling was confirmed to be from the die itself, mechanical doubling, not post-strike damage. It was the first known double die variety of the 2016 no-mint mark proof dime. The rarity stacked on top of rarity, auction houses began preparing special catalog features for these coins. Articles were written. Podcasts dissected the mystery. Why 2016? Why only the dime? And why was the mint mark omitted from a coin designed for precision perfection? Though the exact cause remains unknown, the consensus in numismatic circles is that only a very small number of mint markless proof dimes were produced in 2016. Perhaps a handful. Maybe a few dozen at most. The extreme control of proof production in San Francisco makes the error both rare and deeply significant. Collectors now rank the 2016 no-mint mark Roosevelt proof dime among the most valuable modern dime errors. It bridges the gap between contemporary minting and historic unpredictability. It reminds collectors that even in an age of automation, human error, or subtle design deviation, can still sneak through, depending on condition and authentication. The 2016 no-mint mark Roosevelt dime now carries a market value ranging between $26,000 and $76,000. A 10-cent coin not defined by what was added to it, but by what was missing, and what that absence revealed.